What if I told you a simple thing you do with your shopping cart could secretly get you flagged inside one of the biggest retail systems in the world? And no, I'm not talking about stealing. I'm talking about something so small, you probably did it the last time you went shopping. But here's where it gets crazy. That's just one of dozens of hidden strategies used by a company that looks simple on the surface, but is actually engineered like a psychological machine designed to make you spend more money without even realizing it. Today, we're uncovering the hidden system behind Costco. Pricing tricks, layout manipulation, secret codes, and decisions so extreme, they literally lose millions of dollars on purpose. And once you see it, you'll never shop the same way again. Let's start with something that makes absolutely no sense. There's a famous food combo that has stayed the same price since the mid-1980s. No inflation adjustments, no gradual increases, decades, and not a single change. Now think about that. Everything else around you has gotten more expensive. Rent, gas, groceries. But this one item, frozen in time. And here's the wild part. When executives once suggested increasing the price, even slightly, it wasn't just rejected. It was shut down aggressively. The message was clear. This price does not change. But why would any company refuse to increase profits? Simple. Because they're not trying to make money from that product. They're using it as bait. This is what's known as a loss leader, a product sold at a loss to get you through the door. And it works brilliantly. Millions of people walk in thinking, I'll just grab something quick. But they don't walk out with just one thing. They walk out with carts full of items they never planned to buy. A TV, bulk groceries, things they didn't even know they needed 10 minutes ago. That cheap item, it's not the business. You are. Now here's where things get even more interesting. If you've ever walked into a Costco and felt slightly disoriented, like things aren't where they used to be, you're not imagining it. That confusion? It's intentional. Products are constantly moved around the store. Items you remember seeing in one place suddenly appear somewhere else. Why? Because if everything stayed predictable, you'd walk in, grab what you need, and leave. But confusion forces you to explore. And the longer you stay inside, the more likely you are to buy something extra. Even the layout itself is designed to slow you down. Notice something missing. There are no clear aisle signs guiding you like in a regular supermarket. That's not a mistake. That's strategy. Without clear directions, you wander. You search. You pass by dozens of products you weren't planning to see. And every extra minute you spend inside the store increases the chances of impulse buying. In fact, the average visit in stores like this lasts nearly twice as long as a normal grocery trip. That's not coincidence. That's design. And here's another subtle trick. The most essential items, the ones you actually came for, are always placed at the very back. Milk, eggs, basic groceries. To reach them, you have to walk past everything else first. Seasonal items, massive displays, random products you didn't plan to buy. It's like a carefully constructed obstacle course, built entirely around temptation. But the real genius lies in the pricing. At first glance, everything looks like a great deal. But hidden within those price tags are secret signals most shoppers completely ignore. For example, some products are quietly marked to disappear forever. No restock, no warning. Once they're gone, they're gone. And unless you recognize the signal, you'll miss your chance completely. Then there are items priced in a way that tells a completely different story. Some discounts aren't decided by corporate systems or algorithms. They're decided by actual store managers, people who need certain items gone fast. These are often the deepest discounts in the entire store. But here's the catch. They're not advertised. No signs. No announcements. Nothing. They're hidden in plain sight, mixed in with regular products. Unless you're actively looking, you'll walk right past them. And that's the pattern you'll start to notice. Nothing inside the store is random. Not the layout, not the pricing, not even the products themselves. Everything is calculated. Everything is tested. Everything is designed to influence your behavior without you ever realizing it. Now let's talk about something that might completely change how you look at store brands. Because most people assume one thing. If it's cheaper, it must be lower quality. Right? Well, not here. There's a private label brand inside Costco that generates tens of billions of dollars every year. Not millions. Billions. And here's the shocking part. Many of these products are actually made by the same manufacturers behind premium name brand items. Same factories. Same ingredients. Sometimes even the same production lines. Just different packaging. Take something simple like batteries. You might think you're buying a budget version, but in reality, they're often produced by the exact same companies that make the top-tier brands you already trust. Now think about that for a second. You could be paying double somewhere else for something that's essentially identical. And it doesn't stop there. There are food products like olive oil, coffee, and snacks that have outperformed premium brands in blind taste tests. Not by a little, by a noticeable margin. Professional testers, people trained to detect quality differences, have picked the cheaper option. Again and again. So why doesn't Costco just advertise this openly? Why not tell everyone exactly who makes what? Because they can't. Manufacturers sign strict confidentiality agreements. Legally binding. They're not allowed to reveal the connection. In some cases, even hinting at it could cost someone their job. Which means, you're standing in a store looking at two products made by the same source? One costs twice as much. And the only real difference is branding. Now, let's switch gears. Because pricing isn't the only place Costco plays smart. Let's talk about employees. Have you ever noticed something strange about Costco workers? They don't seem miserable, which is rare in retail. That's because Costco does something most companies don't. They actually pay their employees well, not just minimum wage survival well. We're talking wages that allow people to live comfortably. Benefits, stability, career growth, and the result? Employees stay for years, sometimes decades. Now, why does that matter to you as a customer? Because experienced employees are more efficient. They know the store. They know the products. They know how to solve problems quickly. Compare that to a typical retail store where employees come and go constantly. High turnover means less experience, less efficiency, more mistakes. Costco flipped that model, and it shows. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because paying employees more should mean higher prices, right? That's what most businesses would say. But Costco does the opposite. They keep prices low by cutting profit margins instead. Most retailers mark up products anywhere from 25% to even 50%. Costco? They cap it at around 14 to 15%. That's it. Which means they're making less money per item. But they're making it up through volume. Huge volume. And to keep those prices low, they do something extreme. They become their own supplier. For example, instead of relying on outside companies for certain products, they've invested hundreds of millions of dollars into producing them themselves. From start to finish. Controlling the entire process. Why go that far? Because it gives them power. Power over pricing. Power over quality. Power over supply. So when market prices go crazy, they don't panic like other retailers. They stay stable. And customers notice. Now let's talk about something you've probably experienced, but never questioned. The receipt check at the exit. Most people assume it's about preventing theft. And sure, that's part of it. But that's not the main reason. The real purpose? Catching mistakes. Because in a warehouse environment, errors happen all the time. Bulk items. Large quantities. Fast scanning. It's easy for something to be missed. Or scanned incorrectly. And when that happens, you might walk out with items you didn't pay for. Or worse, pay for something twice. That quick check at the door, it protects both sides. But here's something most people don't realize. Those little marks they draw on your receipt, they actually mean something. Different markings can signal different things internally. Some mean everything is clear. Others might flag something for review. And while it may feel optional, skipping that step repeatedly could get your account flagged. Because yes, the system remembers. Now here's another surprising strategy. Costco doesn't try to offer everything. In fact, they do the opposite. A typical supermarket might carry tens of thousands of different products. Costco? Only a fraction of that. Which seems limiting at first. Less choice, less variety. But psychologically, it does something powerful. When you're faced with too many options, your brain gets overwhelmed. You hesitate. You overthink. You sometimes don't buy anything at all. But when choices are limited, decisions become easier, faster, more automatic. So instead of comparing 20 different versions of the same product, you pick one and move on. And that speed leads to more purchases overall. Every item on those shelves has been carefully selected, tested, and approved. If it doesn't meet strict standards, it doesn't make it in, which means fewer options, but higher confidence in what you're buying. And this combination, low margins, high trust, and strategic simplicity, is what makes the entire system work. Now, let's talk about something that sounds almost unbelievable. Costco's return policy. Because once you understand how it works, you'll realize it's not just generous. It's borderline insane. Imagine buying something, using it for months, maybe even years, and then deciding you don't want it anymore. At most stores, that's impossible. But here, it's often allowed. No receipt? Not a problem. Their system tracks your purchases. So even if you walk in empty-handed, they can still find your transaction. People have returned items long after you'd expect any store to accept them. Seasonal items? Used products? Things that most retailers would instantly reject. Now, of course, there are a few exceptions. Certain categories, like electronics, have stricter return windows. But for the most part, the policy is incredibly flexible. And that raises a big question. Why would any company allow this? Wouldn't people just take advantage of it? Some do. And Costco knows that. They actually monitor return behavior. If someone repeatedly abuses the system, buying items just to return them later, they can be flagged or even banned. So it's not a free-for-all. It's more like a trust system. And here's the genius behind it. Most people don't want to abuse that trust. Instead, it builds something far more valuable than short-term profit. It builds loyalty. When customers know they can shop without risk, they spend more freely. They hesitate less. They come back again and again. And in the long run, that trust is worth far more than the occasional return. Now let's move to another hidden advantage most shoppers overlook completely. The tire center. At first glance, it just looks like another service area. But in reality, it's one of the smartest value plays in the entire warehouse. The prices are already competitive, often lower than what you'd find elsewhere. But that's not even the best part. When you buy tires here, you're not just buying tires. You're buying a package of services that continues for the life of those tires. We're talking about things like rotations, repairs, maintenance, all included. Now compare that to buying cheaper tires somewhere else, only to pay extra every time you need service. Over time, that cheaper option often ends up costing more. And that's a pattern you'll see again and again. Costco doesn't always aim to be the cheapest up front. They aim to be the best overall value. Now here's something even more surprising. There are parts of Costco you can use without even having a membership. Yes, really. For example, in many places you can access their pharmacy services without being a member. No card required, no subscription, and the prices? Often significantly lower than traditional pharmacies. Why? Because they limit how much they mark up medications. Instead of charging whatever the market allows, they stick to a controlled margin. which means real savings for customers, especially for people paying out of pocket. And here's the interesting part. They don't heavily advertise this, because of course, they'd prefer you become a member. But if you know, you know. And the pharmacy isn't the only area like this. There are other services hidden in plain sight that many people completely ignore. Take the optical department. Eye exams here are often much more affordable than traditional clinics. And just like the pharmacy, in some cases you don't even need a membership for the exam itself. Then there's the cost of glasses. Frames and lenses together can be dramatically cheaper than what you'd find in typical eyewear stores. Same quality, same functionality, just without the inflated pricing. Now let's talk about something a little more fun. Free samples. Everyone loves them. But they're not just there to be nice. They're part of a very calculated strategy. When you try a product for free, you're far more likely to buy it. Not just a little more likely, significantly more likely, because now it's not a mystery anymore. You've experienced it. You trust it. And that tiny sample can turn into a full purchase within seconds. Multiply that across thousands of customers, and you start to see why this system works so well. But there's another layer to it. Products that perform well during sampling often get better placement in the store later. More visibility. More exposure. So when you're grabbing that free bite, you're actually part of a larger feedback system, one that helps determine what stays and what disappears. Now here's one of the most underrated deals in the entire store. Gift cards. At first glance, they look like normal gift cards. But look closer, and you'll notice something unusual. You're often paying less than the actual value. For example, you might spend $80 and get $100 worth of value. That's not a sale. That's instant savings. And these deals rotate constantly. Different brands, different offers, different timing. Which means if you're not checking regularly, you're missing out. And here's the twist. Costco isn't losing money on these. The brands themselves are offering the discount because they want your business. They want you walking into their restaurants, stores, or services. So Costco becomes the middle ground, connecting customers with deals that benefit both sides. And once again, it all comes back to the same idea: value, perceived value, and real value. Now let's pull back the curtain completely, because everything we've talked about so far, pricing, products, policies, that's just the surface. The real game? It's psychological. From the moment you walk into Costco, you're being influenced. Not in an obvious way, not in a pushy, aggressive way, but in subtle, carefully engineered ways that shape your behavior without you even noticing. Let's start with something simple. The environment itself. Look around the next time you walk in. The floors are plain concrete. The shelves are industrial. The lighting feels basic. At first glance, it looks like they're cutting costs. Like they're saving money by not making the place look fancy. But that's exactly the point. Because that raw, warehouse-style environment sends a message to your brain. This place is cheap. This place is efficient. This place is all about value. Even if you're not consciously thinking it, you're feeling it. Now here's where it gets clever. Because while the environment looks simple, the strategy behind it is anything but. Take the way products are displayed. Many items are stacked on large pallets instead of neatly arranged shelves. Why? Because it creates a sense of urgency. It feels temporary, like the product might disappear at any moment. And when something feels limited, your brain reacts fast. You don't overthink. You don't delay. You just put it in your cart. Speaking of carts, have you ever noticed how big they are? They're massive, much larger than standard shopping carts. And that's not for convenience. It's for perception. When your cart is huge, even a large number of items look small inside it. So instead of feeling like you've already bought a lot, you feel like you still have room for more. And that subtle perception, it leads to bigger purchases. Now let's talk about the layout. Costco stores follow what's known as a racetrack design. Basically, it's one large loop that guides you through the entire store. You don't just walk in and go straight to what you need. You're guided, pulled, almost forced to pass by everything else first. High-interest items are placed near the entrance. Electronics, seasonal products, eye-catching displays. Why? Because that's when your energy is highest. Your attention is sharp. Your willingness to explore is at its peak. Then, as you move deeper into the store, you encounter everyday essentials. But here's the trick. Those essentials are always placed far away. So, by the time you reach them, you've already passed dozens of opportunities to buy something extra. And remember those missing aisle signs? That's part of the same strategy. Without clear directions, you wander, you explore, you discover, and every extra minute you spend inside increases the chances of unplanned purchases. It's not shopping. It's a controlled experience. Now here's another subtle detail most people miss. There are no clocks, no windows, just like in a casino. Because when you lose track of time, you stay longer. And the longer you stay, the more you spend. Even the absence of shopping bags plays a role. It reinforces the idea that you're in a warehouse, not a traditional store. Everything about the environment is telling your brain, this is different. This is a deal. This is worth it. And your behavior adjusts accordingly. Now here's something even more interesting. Despite all these strategies, Costco doesn't rely on aggressive advertising. They don't need to. Because their real business model isn't just selling products. It's selling membership. That yearly fee, that's the foundation. It creates commitment. It creates loyalty. It creates a sense of belonging. Once you've paid to be part of something, you're far more likely to keep using it, to justify it, to return again and again. And that's where everything connects. The low prices, the generous return policy, the employee satisfaction, the hidden deals, the psychological design. It all feeds into one goal: keep you coming back. Because a returning customer is far more valuable than a one-time buyer. And Costco understands that better than almost anyone. So the next time you walk into that warehouse, take a second. Look around. Pay attention. Notice how you move, what you pick up, what catches your eye. Because once you understand the system, you start to see it everywhere. And that's the real secret. Costco isn't just a store. It's an experience, a strategy, a perfectly engineered machine designed to influence how you think, how you shop, and how you spend. And now, you're one of the few people who can actually see it.